Hi, my name is Wilna Furstenberg, and I will be just taking you through my process on art journaling today. So this is the fourth video in a series of 4 videos where I'm working with washes on art journal pages, and washes mostly with watercolor and then later on acrylic inks. So what I did was I did prep my page with gesso, and that is why the watercolor is sitting on top of the page and not being sucked into the page. Like ideally you would want to work on watercolor paper, which is a thicker paper, plus then when you paint on it, the paper absorbs some of the water beautifully. But one thing that I do enjoy and love about the gesso and the fact that the watercolor sits on top of the page is the fact that you get these beautiful watermarks when it dries, and I'll show you that in a second. So I just splattered a couple colors on there, and you just want this to dry completely. Here you can see the page is dry, and look how lovely it looks. So just let it dry naturally. That's the best way. If you used a lot of water, you want to leave it for a long time, right? So I'm usually in a hurry, and that's why I work in 4 books at once. But I love the texture and the happenings on a page when it just dries like this. So next up, I'm going to be using a stencil and some molding paste just to create a little texture on my page. And this is the same stencil that I used in a previous video, the leaves one. You'll see that in a second. So again, I'm just going to use some light molding paste, and I'm going to spread it through the stencil, and this time I'm going to do it on the sides of the page, so a little bit on the right and then a little bit on the left side. Well, starting on the left side, and then I'm just going to move my stencil over and just do a little bit on the other side. So I do this because you don't want texture all over your page, because you want some empty space, that I call it, that you can write on. So that is just a little reminder for you. So it's like spreading butter on a piece of bread. That's how this consistency of this light molding paste feel, and it dries so quickly. Within 10-15 minutes it will be dry. You can see here my watercolors are completely dry, and you can also see that that the molding paste is disappearing into the page, just because the it dries white, right? And my paint is almost finished, so now I'm just adding a little bit of water to it, and I'm going to mix my own color. That's what I'm going to do, add a little orange. Yeah, I do that when the bottles are fairly empty, and I can just maybe play with it a little more. I'm just going to mix this lovely orange, and then I'm just going to start my washes, the second part of it, I guess. So a clean brush with lots of water, and now I'm just going to paint with the acrylic ink, and there you can see how once it hits the molding paste, it just lifts the texture out. It just like enhances it in a beautiful way. Again, a good reminder to make sure your bottles are closed. Oh, it happens so many times with me. Anyway, so I'm just going to give you another tip. One that I would give you, but not necessarily follow my own advice, is let the layers dry in between, right? Because in the end, I think it works the best when you work dry, wet on dry, and not wet on wet. But I don't follow that advice. But you can see how the blue is still showing up underneath the orange. Another word of caution is orange and blue is complementary colors. So if they mix, they're going to make brown. So that's just one thing. I'm not a big fan of brown. I don't think you will ever see me use brown on a page, and it's just a personal preference. I like fresh, happy colors. And I'm going to add my illustration. I like to use the rule of thirds, so 2/3 on one side and another third on the other side, or more or less, always except sometimes. And I use Mod Podge just to add my illustration to my page. And you can see I'm using a paper plate just to add the Mod Podge to the back of my illustration. And then another little tip here: if you use a printer to print your illustrations, make sure that it's pigment ink and not dye ink, because dye ink, the moment it gets wet, or if you add Mod Podge to it, it will smudge. Pigment ink is better. So the Epson Artisan 1430 printer that I use is perfect for that. It's a good price printer, and it prints phenomenally well on any kind of paper, and I love it. And it's pigment ink. So the Epsons, you can print papers and leave it in the rain and it won't even smudge all that much. So the Mod Podge do dry completely transparent. So even if it looks a little white on the illustration now, once it's dry, it will be transparent. And I'm still using the same white that was on this palette since I think the second video. And I'm just going to paint a little calm back on my page. And that's just like the way I do it. I use techniques until I feel adventurous again. And then I start experimenting with new things. Sometimes one thing leads to another thing. And I think that's just the way it is with art, is the more you make, the more happenings happen. So again, let the book dry completely, and that's why I work in 4 books at once, because while one is drying, I can carry on another one. And that's also the reason why I number my pages, is because when you do editing on videos, all the pages start looking the same. It's amazing how that happens. You can't distinguish which page is which. So by just numbering them, I know exactly. So I'm just using spray paint. I love the graffiti look. I love the combination of the graffiti on the art, and the fine art combination. I like it. And I also love the pop of black. So I will experiment with more colors, maybe add a Prussian blue later on, And again, with Mod Podge, this is a cool thing when you put it on top of your illustration, is you can just wipe it clean should you just want a little bit of calm, So I'm just adding more texture. And so you can't read the words that I'm spray painting there because the stencil is not flat enough on the page. But sometimes that's fine with me, because then you just use it for texture and not really to read what was said. So this is a beautiful color, almost a alizarin crimson. I think it's magenta. Love that color. And I'm just going to use it to add like a little splash of color to it. My bottle is almost empty, so I'm just using a wet brush, and a round brush is beautiful for paint splatters, you can see there. But again, the trick is you have to use enough water or wetness, because when it's dry, it will not splatter, it won't drip off the edge of the tip. So just remember that. This page is almost done. It's one of my favorites, and I think it's because of the splashes of pink in there, and the illustration has some pink that I like, and I love the interaction between orange and pink. It's actually one of my favorites. So up next, I'll show you a photo of the finished page with my journaling added. And I love to journal on my pages, and a page is never done until the journaling is done. And then lastly, I'm just going to show you a little preview for the workshop that I created, where I teach a lot of, not the exact same techniques, but so many different techniques with videos and tutorials, and I hope that you enroll and get the class. It will be absolutely worth it. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the interweb soon. Bye.